The stars had witnessed countless deaths at the hands of the Krell Empire. For 3,000 cycles, their hunting fleets had moved from world to world, seeking prey worthy of their attention. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, standing 8 feet tall with armored bodies that could withstand weapons fire. Their 4 eyes saw in multiple spectrums, tracking heat and movement with deadly precision. Retractable claws emerged from their 6-fingered hands, sharp enough to tear through metal. The Krell did not simply conquer. They hunted. It was their culture, their religion, their entire reason for existence. The greatest honor a Krell could achieve was to hunt and kill the most dangerous prey across the stars. Their homeworld was covered in monuments built from the bones of extinct species. Their ships carried trophy rooms displaying the heads of alien warriors. Their children were taught to track and kill before they learned to speak. Huntmaster Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloodwind, and studied the blue planet on his display. Earth. The scouts had watched this world for many cycles now, observing the dominant species that called themselves humans. They were soft creatures, standing only 6 feet tall with no natural weapons. Their skin was fragile, their senses weak. They relied on primitive tools to kill each other in their small, pathetic wars. But the scouts had noted something interesting. Humans never seemed to stop fighting. Even when defeated, even when facing impossible odds, they continued to resist. This made them potentially entertaining prey. Not challenging, of course. Nothing truly challenged the Krell anymore. But perhaps they would provide a few moments of sport before their inevitable extinction. Vorthak's second-in-command, Draknor, approached with the ritualistic bow of a lesser hunter. "Huntmaster, the fleet awaits your command." "Shall we begin the culling?" "No," Vorthak said, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. "We shall announce ourselves first. The prey must know they are being hunted. It makes the fear sweeter." The Krell broadcast reached every human device capable of receiving signals. Vorthak's massive form appeared on screens across the planet. His voice translated into every human language by their computers. "Creatures of Earth, you have been selected for the Great Hunt. We are the Krell, and we have conquered 400 worlds. We have ended species more dangerous than you can imagine. You will be our prey, and your deaths will bring honor to our hunters. We grant you 1 rotation of your planet to prepare. Then the hunt begins." The broadcast ended. Panic spread across Earth like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces went to high alert. Scientists analyzed the transmission, confirming what everyone feared. The ships in orbit were real, and they possessed technology far beyond human capability. Commander Sarah Chen sat in the emergency meeting of Earth's United Defense Force. The room was filled with generals, admirals, and politicians all shouting over each other. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate military action. A few suggested surrender. Sarah remained silent, watching the chaos. She was a strategic analyst, not a combat commander. Her job was to assess threats and find weaknesses. For the past 6 hours, she had been reviewing every piece of data the scouts had gathered on the Krell before they revealed themselves. What she found disturbed her deeply. The Krell had destroyed 317 known civilizations. They had enslaved dozens more. They possessed energy weapons, advanced armor, and ships that could cross star systems in days. Humanity had nuclear weapons and jets that still burned fossil fuel. This was not a war. This was an extermination. "Commander Chen," the Supreme General called out, noticing her silence. "You've been studying these aliens. What's your assessment?" Sarah stood and the room fell quiet. "We cannot beat them in conventional warfare. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. A single Krell hunter is worth 10 of our best soldiers. Their ships can destroy our cities from orbit. If we meet them head-on, humanity will be extinct within a week." The politicians erupted in protest, but the military leaders remained silent. They knew she was right. "However," Sarah continued, her voice cutting through the noise, "I don't believe we should surrender. The Krell have one weakness. They see this as sport, not war. They have hunting protocols, rules they follow. They will come down to the surface to hunt us personally. They want trophies. That means they have to get close. And if they get close, they can die." The Supreme General leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "We evacuate the cities. We scatter into the forests, the mountains, the deserts. We make them come find us. And when they do, we make them pay for every inch of ground. We don't fight like an army. We fight like prey that refuses to die. 24 hours later, the Krell fleet descended. Precise energy beams lanced from orbit, destroying military bases, communication centers, and power plants. The humans did not retaliate. They could not. Their missiles and jets were destroyed before they could launch. In 6 hours, Earth's organized military ceased to exist as a fighting force. The Krell hunting parties landed in transports, each carrying 20 warriors. They spread across the continent seeking the human settlements. But something was wrong. The cities were empty. The bases were abandoned. Where was the prey? Vorthak watched from orbit, his confidence unwavering. The humans hide in their burrows. Send tracker teams. Flush them out. Let the hunt begin properly. In the forests of North America, a Krell hunting party moved through the trees. Their thermal vision picked up heat signatures scattered throughout the area. Small groups of humans running and hiding. The Krell split into pairs, pursuing individual targets. This was how they preferred to hunt. One-on-one combat, warrior against prey. A Krell hunter named Tharik chased a heat signature to a small clearing. He emerged from the trees, claws extended, ready to claim his first Earth trophy. The human stood there, a young male holding a primitive chemical weapon. The human fired. The bullets bounced off Tharik's armor. The Krell laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Then the ground beneath Tharik exploded. The human had been standing on a buried mine filled with high explosives and metal fragments. The blast threw the Krell hunter 15 feet into the air. He crashed into a tree, his armor cracked, his body broken. The human approached carefully, holding a larger weapon now. He fired 3 times into the wounded Krell's head. Tharik died without understanding what had happened. The young human spoke into a radio. "Target down." Trap worked. Moving to position 7. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. The Krell found humans, but the humans were not running randomly. They were leading the hunters into prepared kill zones. Explosives buried in roads. Buildings rigged to collapse. Ambushes from multiple directions. The humans did not fight with honor. They fought to survive. By the end of the first day, 47 Krell hunters were dead. It was more casualties than they had suffered in their last 10 hunts combined. Vorthak stared at the reports, his confidence beginning to crack. The prey was fighting back. Not just fighting, killing. In a bunker deep underground, Commander Sarah Chen marked each Krell death on her map. Her radio network was receiving reports from resistance cells across the globe. The Krell were powerful, but they were arrogant. They followed their hunting protocols even when those protocols got them killed. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Krell thought this was a hunt. They were wrong. This was war, and humanity had been practicing for thousands of years. The aliens were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans did not make good prey. They made excellent survivors. The hunt had begun, but not the way the Krell expected. 3 weeks into the hunt, Vorthak stood in his trophy room and stared at the empty displays. This was wrong. By now he should have dozens of human skulls mounted on the walls. His hunters should be celebrating victories and sharing stories of glorious kills. Instead, his warriors returned wounded, traumatized, or did not return at all. The humans refused to behave like proper prey. They did not gather in herds for easy slaughter. They did not panic and run into open ground. They hid in their structures and underground tunnels, emerging only to attack from unexpected angles. They used explosive devices that violated every principle of honorable combat. They showed no respect for the sacred traditions of the hunt. Draknor entered the trophy room, moving with the slight limp he had gained 3 days earlier. A human trap had nearly severed his leg. Only his armor had saved him. "Huntmaster, we have lost another party." 12 warriors entered the human city called Chicago. None have returned. Vorthak's mandibles twitched with anger. How is this possible? 12 warriors against primitive prey? The humans collapsed an entire building on them. Draknor explained. Our warriors were tracking heat signatures through the structure when the supports were destroyed. They were buried under thousands of tons of rubble. Cowards, Vorthak snarled. They have no honor. But even as he said the words, doubt crept into his mind. The Krell had hunted for 3,000 cycles. They had faced prey with natural weapons, prey with crude technology, prey that traveled in massive herds. But they had never faced prey quite like humans. These creatures seemed to possess an instinct for survival that transcended logic. They adapted frighteningly fast. Far below, in a network of tunnels beneath Chicago, Commander Sarah Chen reviewed the successful operation. The building collapse had worked perfectly. More importantly, her teams had recovered Krell weapons and armor from the rubble. Human scientists were already studying them, learning their weaknesses. "Commander," one of her officers reported, "we intercepted another Krell communication. They're calling for reinforcements from orbit. They want to send 50 more hunting parties." Sarah nodded. "This was expected." "Good. The more they send down, the more we learn about them. Pass the word to all cells. Focus on capturing equipment. Every weapon we take is one they can't use against us." She walked through the tunnel network, passing groups of fighters preparing for the next engagement. These were not soldiers anymore. Soldiers followed rules and wore uniforms. These were survivors, resistance fighters, people who had lost everything and decided to make the aliens pay for every inch of Earth. A young woman approached Sarah, carrying a Krell plasma rifle. "Commander, we figured out how to charge these. The power cells are compatible with our electrical systems. We can use their own weapons against them." Sarah took the rifle and examined it. The weapon was heavy but well balanced. She had fired one before during a test after the first capture. The plasma bolt had melted through 6 inches of steel. In human hands, these weapons could change everything. "How many do we have operational?" Sarah asked. 43 rifles, 12 sidearms, and 5 of their larger cannons. "We're training teams on each one." Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 3 weeks ago, humanity had been defenseless. Now they were armed with alien technology and learning fast. "Distribute them to the strike teams. Priority targets are Krell armories and supply depots. I want more of these weapons." Across the planet, the pattern repeated. In the jungles of South America, Krell hunters found themselves stalked by humans who moved through the dense vegetation like ghosts. In the mountains of Asia, ambushes claimed warrior after warrior. In the African deserts, human fighters used the harsh environment to their advantage, letting the heat and sandstorms wear down the aliens before striking. The Krell had expected to complete this hunt in days. Now, as the weeks stretched on, they found themselves trapped in a grinding conflict with no clear end. They were still killing humans, of course. For every Krell that died, 10 or 20 humans perished. But the humans kept coming. They never surrendered. They never fled the planet. They just kept fighting with a stubbornness that defied comprehension. Vorthak called a meeting of his senior hunters. They gathered in the war room of the Bloodwind, their armor scarred from battles that should never have been necessary. These were the finest warriors of the Krell Empire, veterans of 100 hunts. Now they looked uncertain, even afraid. "The humans are not behaving according to any known pattern," Vorthak admitted, speaking words he never thought he would say. "They have adapted to our tactics faster than any previous prey." "What are your recommendations?" One hunter, a veteran named Kraltos, spoke up. "We should abandon the traditional hunt protocols, level their cities from orbit, burn their forests, poison their water, eliminate the hiding places and force them into the open." Several hunters clicked their approval, but Vorthak hesitated. To abandon the hunt protocols would be to admit that the Krell could not defeat these weak creatures in honorable combat. It would be a stain on his reputation that would last forever. More than that, it would mean the humans had won. Not the war, but something more important. They would have forced the great Krell Empire to change their ways. "No," Vorthak decided. "We will increase our numbers. We will hunt more carefully, but we will not abandon our traditions. Send word to the fleet. I want 200 more warriors on the surface within the day." That night, in tunnels and ruins across Earth, resistance fighters celebrated a small victory. They had captured a Krell supply ship that had landed to resupply a hunting party. Inside, they found weapons, armor, medical supplies, and something even more valuable: a computer system containing Krell star maps and communication codes. Sarah Chen stood over the computer, watching her technical team download everything. The data was incredible. Locations of other Krell hunting fleets, coordinates of enslaved worlds, names and positions of Krell commanders, communication frequencies, ship specifications. It was an intelligence goldmine, but something else caught Sarah's attention. A message log showing communications between Vorthak and the Krell homeworld. She had it translated and read it carefully. The words made her blood run cold, then burn with anger. The Krell were not just hunting humanity for sport. They were evaluating humans for potential enslavement. If humans proved too weak, they would be exterminated. If they proved resilient, they would be enslaved and used as warriors for future Krell conquests. This was not about honor or tradition. It was about expanding their empire. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The Krell saw humans as tools, resources to be harvested. They had done this to hundreds of other species across the galaxy. How many civilizations had been destroyed or enslaved by these hunters? How many worlds had suffered what Earth was suffering now? She made a decision in that moment. Survival was no longer enough. Humanity would not just drive the Krell away, they would destroy them. They would make an example so terrible that no other alien species would ever consider hunting humans again. Sarah called her senior officers together and showed them the data. "We're not fighting to survive anymore," she told them. "We're fighting to win. The Krell have ships in orbit. They have technology we need, and they have underestimated us so badly that they don't even see us as a real threat. That's going to be their final mistake." One officer looked skeptical. "Commander, how do we fight a space fleet? We don't even have working satellites anymore." Sarah smiled grimly. "We do what humans have always done. We adapt, we improvise, and we hit them where they don't expect it. The Krell think they're hunting us. It's time we showed them what it means to be prey." The Krell hunting party moved through the ruins of Denver with practiced caution. They had learned slowly and painfully that human cities were death traps. Every building could be rigged to explode. Every street could hide an ambush. The warriors moved in tight formation, weapons ready, scanning constantly for threats. They never saw the attack coming. Human fighters emerged from underground tunnels on all sides, armed with captured Krell plasma rifles. The weapons fired in perfect synchronization, cutting down 6 warriors in the first 3 seconds. The remaining Krell tried to respond, but the humans vanished back into the tunnels as quickly as they had appeared. Then the explosives detonated. Shaped charges placed in the surrounding buildings brought walls cascading down on the surviving Krell. Those who were not crushed immediately found themselves trapped under rubble, unable to move. Human fighters emerged again, methodically executing each wounded warrior with headshots from Krell weapons. The entire engagement lasted 90 seconds. 14 Krell died without killing a single human. It was the third such massacre that week. Commander Sarah Chen watched the helmet camera footage from one of her fighters. The quality was poor, but she could see enough. Her people were no longer just surviving. They were hunting. The Krell had taught humanity a terrible lesson, and now they were learning what it meant when the student surpassed the teacher. "How many Krell weapons did we recover?" Sarah asked. Her supply officer checked the inventory. 14 rifles, 14 sidearms, and 2 of their heavy cannons, plus armor pieces and communication equipment. "We also captured 1 wounded warrior alive." Sarah's expression hardened. "Where is he?" "Medical facility, Sector 7. He's badly injured but stable. The medics say he'll survive if we keep treating him." Sarah made her way to the facility, a converted basement deep beneath the city. The wounded Krell lay on a reinforced table, his armor removed, his multiple injuries bandaged with human medical supplies. 2 guards stood watch with plasma rifles. The alien's 4 eyes tracked Sarah as she entered. "Do you understand me?" Sarah asked in English. The Krell had translation devices. She hoped this one was still functioning. The Krell's mandibles clicked weakly. A synthesized voice emerged from his translator. "I understand, prey creature." Sarah pulled up a chair and sat down, studying the alien. Up close, the Krell were less intimidating. Dangerous, yes, but not invincible. "My name is Commander Sarah Chen. I lead the human resistance in this region." "What's your name?" "I am Vorketh, warrior of the Bloodwind. I will tell you nothing, prey." "I don't need you to tell me anything," Sarah said calmly. "We captured your computer systems. We have your maps, your codes, your fleet positions. We know everything about your empire. I just wanted to ask you one question." The Krell said nothing, but his eyes showed curiosity. "In 3,000 cycles of hunting," Sarah continued, "has any species ever fought back like we have? Has any prey ever killed so many of your warriors?" Vorketh was silent for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked in what might have been their equivalent of a laugh. "No, human. You are the first. Other species fled or cowered or died quickly. You are also the most foolish. You fight when you should surrender. You resist when resistance is futile. You will all die. But you will die slowly and painfully because you refuse to accept your fate." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah said, standing. "We're not going to die, you are. Your huntmaster made a mistake when he came to Earth. He thought we were prey. He was wrong. We're survivors, and we're going to teach your entire empire what happens when you hunt the wrong species." She left the Krell to think about her words. As she walked through the tunnels, her mind was already working on the next phase of her plan. The Krell fleet in orbit was the real prize. Those ships represented technology that could change everything, but taking them would require something unprecedented. Humanity would need to take the fight into space. In the mountains of Colorado, human engineers worked around the clock on a desperate project. They had recovered 3 intact Krell transport ships from crashed or abandoned landing sites. The ships were damaged but salvageable. Human pilots were learning to fly them through dangerous trial and error. 2 pilots had already died in crashes, but the others persisted. Sarah arrived at the mountain facility to inspect the progress. The head engineer, a woman named Dr. Maria Santos, greeted her with exhausted enthusiasm. "Commander, we've got 1 transport fully operational. The other 2 need another week, but this one can fly. We tested it last night. Reached the upper atmosphere before bringing it back down." Sarah examined the alien ship. It was smaller than she had expected, designed to carry about 30 warriors. The hull was covered in Krell symbols and battle markings. Now it bore crude human paint, making it look even more battered. "Can it reach orbit?" Sarah asked. "Yes, but it's not armed. The Krell stripped the weapons when they abandoned it. It's purely a transport, that's fine. I don't need it to fight. I need it to infiltrate." "How many people can it carry?" Dr. Santos did some mental calculations. 30 comfortably, maybe 40 if they're packed tight. "But Commander, you're not seriously thinking of attacking the orbital fleet, are you? That's suicide." Sarah turned to face the engineer. "The Krell have been hunting on Earth for 6 weeks. They've lost over 300 warriors. That's more casualties than they've taken in their last dozen hunts combined. They're frustrated, angry, and their hunt master is desperate to save face. Desperate commanders make mistakes. I intend to exploit those mistakes." She called together her best fighters, the ones who had survived multiple engagements with the Krell. 30 men and women, all veterans now despite most of them being civilians just weeks earlier. They gathered in a secure briefing room, curious about why they had been summoned. "We're taking the fight to orbit," Sarah announced without preamble. "We've learned to fly a Krell transport. We're going to use it to infiltrate their flagship, the Bloodwind. Once inside, we're going to kill every Krell we find and capture the ship." The room erupted in shocked voices. One fighter, a former police officer named Marcus, spoke up. "Commander, that's insane. Even if we reach the ship without being shot down, there could be hundreds of Krell on board. We'll be outnumbered 10 to 1. 15 to 1, actually," Sarah corrected. "According to the intelligence we captured, the Bloodwind carries a crew of 450. But most of them are deployed on the surface hunting us. Current estimates suggest only about 200 remain on the ship. And they won't be expecting an attack from a transport that should be one of their own." Another fighter, a young woman named Lisa, who had lost her entire family to the Krell, leaned forward. "I'm in. What's the plan?" Sarah smiled. Lisa understood. This was not about good odds or safe strategies. This was about hitting back so hard that the Krell would never forget. "We approached during the confusion of a major surface engagement. While they're focused on the battle below, we dock with the Bloodwind, claiming to have wounded warriors for medical treatment. Once inside, we move fast. Secure engineering, life support, and the bridge. We use their own ship systems against them." She pulled up schematics of Krell ships that they had extracted from captured computers. "These ships are designed for hunting parties, not repelling boarders. The Krell have never faced an attack inside their own vessels. They have no internal security protocols, no blast doors, no defensive positions. Their arrogance is our advantage." The fighters studied the plans, their initial shock giving way to grim determination. This was a suicide mission by any rational measure. But rationality had died when the Krell arrived. Now there was only survival, resistance, and revenge. "We launch in 3 days," Sarah continued. "Use that time to memorize every corridor, every room, every system on that ship. We get one shot at this. If we fail, we're dead. But if we succeed, we capture the Huntmaster's flagship and prove to every Krell warrior that humans are not prey. We are predators." In orbit above Earth, Huntmaster Vorthak stood on his bridge and watched another hunting party get decimated by human resistance. The humans had lured his warriors into an abandoned structure and brought the entire building down on them. It was a tactic they had used dozens of times, yet his warriors kept falling for it. "This is taking too long," Vorthak growled. "The humans should have been extinct by now. Instead, they multiply like parasites." Draknor approached cautiously. "Huntmaster, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans clearly do not respect the traditions of the hunt. Maybe we should respond in kind. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in anger, but he did not rebuke his second. Deep down, he knew Draknor was right. The humans had forced them into a war of attrition, something the Krell were not prepared for. Every day that passed, more warriors died. Every day, the prey became more dangerous, but admitting defeat was unthinkable. The Krell Empire had never failed a hunt. If word spread that humans had driven them off, other enslaved species might rebel. The Empire could collapse. Vorthak had to see this through, no matter the cost. Send another 100 warriors to the surface, he ordered, and prepare the orbital bombardment systems. If the humans will not come out and fight with honor, we will burn them out. The stolen Krell transport docked with the Bloodwind without incident. The docking clamps locked into place with a heavy thud that Sarah felt through her boots. Around her, 30 human fighters checked their weapons one final time. Every person in this ship knew they were probably going to die. None of them cared anymore. Sarah activated the communication system, speaking in the Krell language that she had learned from captured translation software. Her pronunciation was terrible, but it would have to do. Bloodwind Command. This is Transport 7-4 returning with wounded warriors from surface engagement. Requesting immediate medical bay access. The response came quickly. Confirmed, Transport 7-4. Proceed to Medical Bay Deck 9. Medical teams are standing by. The airlock hissed open. Sarah led her team into the Krell flagship, moving with confidence she did not feel. The corridor was empty, exactly as their intelligence suggested. The Krell had never considered the possibility of being boarded by prey. Their ships had no internal security beyond basic door locks. 2 Krell medical personnel rounded the corner, heading toward the airlock to receive the supposed wounded. They stopped in confusion when they saw humans instead. Sarah shot them both before they could raise an alarm. The plasma bolts burned through their bodies silently. The Krell fell without a sound. Teams 2 and 3, head to engineering, Sarah whispered into her radio. Teams 4 and 5, secure life support. Team 1, you're with me. We're going to the bridge. The teams split up, moving through the ship's corridors like ghosts. The interior of the Bloodwind was surprisingly primitive despite its advanced technology. The Krell had built this ship for hunting, not comfort. Everything was functional, brutal, and designed for warriors who cared nothing for aesthetics. Sarah's team encountered their first real resistance at a junction near the bridge. 4 Krell guards stood watch, heavily armed and armored. They saw the humans approaching and raised their weapons, but they were too slow. Years of hunting had made them overconfident. They expected prey to run, not attack. The humans opened fire from multiple angles. Plasma bolts and conventional bullets hammered into the guards. 1 Krell managed to return fire, his shot cutting down a human fighter named Thomas before he fell. The others died in seconds. Sarah did not pause to mourn Thomas. There would be time for that later if any of them survived. In engineering, teams 2 and 3 hit their target with brutal efficiency. The Krell engineers were unarmed, focused on their work, completely unprepared for combat. The humans killed them quickly and seized control of the ship's power systems. A human engineer who had studied the captured schematics began locking out the Krell command codes. Commander, the engineer radioed, we have engineering. Locking down main power controls now. They can't shut us out unless they come down here and physically remove us. Good, Sarah replied. Hold that position. Kill anyone who tries to take it back. Teams 4 and 5 reached life support without incident. These systems were automated and required minimal crew. The few Krell present died before they understood what was happening. The humans quickly learned the controls and prepared to do something the Krell would never expect. On the bridge, Huntmaster Vorthak was reviewing the latest casualty reports when alarms began screaming throughout the ship. His mandibles clicked in confusion. Internal alarms? That made no sense. There were no threats inside the Bloodwind. Report, he barked at his bridge crew. Huntmaster, we have weapons fire on decks 9, 12, and 14. Multiple casualties. Unknown attackers. Unknown. Vorthak felt a chill run through him. There were only Krell on this ship. Who could possibly be attacking? Then Draknor looked up from his console, his eyes wide with something Vorthak had never seen before in a Krell warrior. Fear. Huntmaster, the attackers are human. The prey is inside our ship. For a moment, Vorthak could not process the words. It was impossible. Prey did not attack hunters in their own den. It violated every natural law, every principle of the hunt. But the reports kept coming. Humans and engineering. Humans and life support. Humans heading toward the bridge. Seal the bridge, Vorthak ordered. All warriors converge on the attackers. Kill them all! The bridge doors locked with a heavy clang. The Krell command crew drew their weapons and prepared for a siege. On the monitors, Vorthak could see his warriors throughout the ship responding to the alert, moving to engage the human invaders. There were only 30 humans. He had nearly 200 warriors on the ship. The prey would be crushed, but then the lights went out. Emergency lighting activated, bathing everything in a red glow. The life support systems shut down and the air began growing stale. On every monitor, Vorthak watched his warriors stop in confusion as the ship's systems failed around them. Sarah's voice came over the ship's communication system, speaking in broken but understandable Krell. Attention, Krell warriors. We control your engines. We control your life support. We control your power. You have two choices. Surrender or die when we vent the atmosphere. Vorthak's mandibles trembled with rage. The prey was making demands. The prey had infiltrated his flagship and turned it against him. This was beyond unthinkable. This was a nightmare. They are bluffing, Vorthak said, though he did not sound convinced. They would die too if they vented the atmosphere. Commander, they have sealed themselves in engineering and life support, Draknor reported. Those sections have independent air supplies. They could vent the rest of the ship and survive while we suffocate. Vorthak stood frozen, his mind struggling to process this impossible situation. In 3,000 cycles of hunting, no prey had ever done this. No species had ever turned the tables so completely. The humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, easy prey. How had it come to this? Throughout the ship, Krell warriors faced an impossible choice. Fight and die or surrender to prey. It went against every instinct, every tradition, every lesson they had been taught since birth. But the alternative was death by suffocation, or being spaced when the humans vented the atmosphere. One by one, groups of Krell began laying down their weapons. It started with the younger warriors, those who had not yet been fully indoctrinated into the hunting culture. Then the older warriors followed, their pride unable to overcome their survival instinct. Within an hour, most of the ship's crew had surrendered. Only the bridge remained defiant. Vorthak stood with his remaining bridge crew, weapons ready. We do not surrender, he announced. We are Krell, we are hunters. We do not bow to prey. Sarah arrived at the bridge with her remaining fighters. She had lost 7 people in the fighting, including Thomas. 23 humans remained facing the locked bridge doors. She could blow the doors open with explosives, but that would kill everyone inside and damage vital ship systems. Huntmaster Vorthak, Sarah called out. You have lost. Your warriors have surrendered. Your ship is under our control. Open the doors and live. Force us to break in and you die. Then I die, Vorthak roared back. I will not surrender to prey. Sarah considered the situation. She needed Vorthak alive if possible. He was the key to everything that came next. But how did you capture someone who would rather die than surrender? Then she remembered the wounded Krell they had captured weeks ago. She had his translator, taken after he died from his injuries. She had been studying Krell culture from the captured databases, learning their psychology. The Krell valued strength above all else. They respected worthy opponents. Huntmaster, Sarah called out, switching tactics. You say you will not surrender to prey. But we are not prey anymore. We have hunted your warriors across Earth. We have killed hundreds of your best fighters. We have infiltrated your flagship and seized it from within. At what point do you admit that we are not prey? At what point do you recognize us as hunters? There was silence from the bridge. Sarah continued, her voice carrying the weight of weeks of death and suffering. Your empire has hunted for 3,000 cycles. You have destroyed hundreds of species, but you made a mistake when you came to Earth. You thought humans were weak because we have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You were wrong. Our weapon is our mind. Our armor is our determination. Our strength is that we never ever give up. More silence. Then Vorthak's voice came through the door, quieter now. What do you want, human? Your life, your ship, and your knowledge, Sarah answered honestly. In exchange, I offer you something no prey has ever given a Krell. A chance to survive with honor. Open the doors. Face me in single combat. If you win, I order my people to withdraw and you keep your ship. If I win, you surrender yourself and your crew to us. Either way, you die fighting like a warrior, not trapped like prey behind locked doors. The challenge hung in the air. It was insane by human standards. Sarah was offering to fight an 8-foot-tall alien warrior in hand-to-hand combat, but by Krell standards it was the highest form of respect. She was offering Vorthak a chance to die as a hunter, not a coward. The bridge doors opened. Huntmaster Vorthak stepped out, his weapons discarded. He towered over Sarah, his 4 eyes studying her with a mixture of hatred and something that might have been respect. "You cannot defeat me in combat, human," Vorthak said. "I have killed prey from 100 worlds." Vorthak struck first, his claws slashing toward Sarah's throat with speed that seemed impossible for something so large. Sarah ducked under the blow, feeling the rush of air as the claws passed inches above her head. She rolled to the side, buying herself space. The Huntmaster was faster than she expected, but Sarah had advantages he did not understand. She had spent weeks studying captured Krell, learning how they moved, how they fought. The Krell were powerful but predictable. They relied on strength and natural weapons. They had never needed to develop complex fighting techniques because their prey was usually weaker. Sarah was not stronger than Vorthak, but she was smarter, and she had been training in combat since she joined the military at 18. She feinted left, then dove right when Vorthak took the bait. Her blade found the weak point behind his knee joint, where the armor plates did not quite meet. The Krell roared in pain as her blade cut deep. But Vorthak was not finished. He spun with surprising agility despite his injury, his massive arm catching Sarah across the chest and throwing her against the wall. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She tasted blood. The Krell blade fell from her hand, clattering on the metal floor. Vorthak advanced, limping but deadly. "You fight well for prey, human, but it ends now." Sarah's hand found something at her belt. The Krell plasma pistol she had taken from a dead warrior weeks ago. She had not wanted to use a weapon in what was supposed to be single combat, but survival mattered more than honor. She drew and fired in one smooth motion. The plasma bolt caught Vorthak in the shoulder, spinning him around. He crashed against the wall, smoke rising from the wound. Sarah stood, pain shooting through her ribs, and aimed the pistol at the Huntmaster's head. "I win," she said simply. Vorthak looked up at her, his 4 eyes showing something that might have been understanding. "You used a weapon. That was not honorable combat." "No," Sarah agreed. "It was not. But I learned from you, Huntmaster. I learned that survival is more important than honor. I learned that you do whatever it takes to win. You taught humanity that lesson when you came to hunt us. Now you pay the price for being such a good teacher." She kept the weapon trained on him but did not fire. "Your crew has surrendered. Your ship is ours. You have 2 choices now. Die here or live and watch what happens next. Because, Huntmaster, this is just the beginning. You came to Earth thinking you would add us to your list of conquered species. Instead, you gave us your technology, your tactics, and most importantly, your motivation. We know about your empire now. We know about the other species you have enslaved, and we are going to free every single one of them." Vorthak's mandibles clicked slowly. "You cannot defeat the Krell Empire. We have fleets across 100 star systems." "Maybe," Sarah said. "But those fleets have never faced an enemy that refuses to give up. They have never faced prey that became predators, and they have never faced humans who are angry." She gestured with her weapon. "Get up. You are going to help us contact those enslaved species. You're going to tell them what happened here. You are going to tell them that the great Krell Empire was defeated by a species you thought was weak prey, and you are going to watch as your empire burns." Over the next 3 days, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Bloodwind and coordinated the most audacious military operation in human history. The captured Krell ship became the headquarters for a global counterattack. Human forces on Earth used the ship's advanced sensors to track and ambush Krell hunting parties with devastating effectiveness. But more importantly, Sarah used the ship's communication systems to contact other species across the galaxy. The Krell had kept detailed records of every world they had conquered. Sarah reached out to them all, broadcasting a simple message. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. The Krell came to hunt my species. We destroyed their hunting fleet and captured their flagship. If you want freedom, now is the time to fight. The hunters are vulnerable. Show them that you are not prey." The response was immediate and overwhelming. On 17 worlds, enslaved species rose in rebellion. They had been waiting for a sign that the Krell could be beaten. Earth had provided that sign. Suddenly, the Krell Empire faced uprisings across their territory. The Krell High Command responded by sending an extermination fleet to Earth. This was no longer about hunting. This was about survival. If Earth was not destroyed, the entire empire would collapse. 300 warships left the Krell homeworld, carrying weapons powerful enough to burn planets. Sarah watched them coming on the Bloodwind sensors. She had expected this. The Krell could not allow Earth to survive, but she had a surprise waiting for them. Over the past weeks, while fighting the ground war, human engineers had been reverse engineering Krell technology. They could not build warships, not yet, but they could modify what they had captured. Every transport ship, every small craft that the Krell had landed on Earth had been recovered, repaired, and armed with improvised weapons. More importantly, Sarah had allies now. The 17 worlds that had rebelled were sending whatever ships they could spare. Some were barely spaceworthy. Others were Krell vessels that the rebels had captured. None of them were properly armed or trained, but there were hundreds of them and they were all angry. The Krell extermination fleet arrived in Earth orbit expecting to find a defeated world ready for final destruction. Instead, they found a massive coalition fleet waiting for them. Ships from a dozen species, all bearing scars from Krell oppression, all ready to fight. The battle that followed was chaos. The Krell had superior ships and weapons, but the coalition had numbers and desperation. Human fighters in captured transports flew suicide runs against Krell destroyers, ramming them when their weapons failed. Alien rebels who had been enslaved for generations finally had a chance to strike back at their oppressors. Sarah commanded the Bloodwind from the center of the battle, coordinating the coalition forces and using the Krell flagship's weapons against its own fleet. It was a fitting irony. The ship that had come to oversee humanity's hunt now fought to defend Earth. Huntmaster Vorthak watched from the bridge, held under guard. He saw his empire's fleet being torn apart by prey species that should have been exterminated long ago. He saw Krell ships burning, Krell warriors dying. His entire worldview was collapsing around him. "How did you do this?" he asked Sarah, his voice hollow. "We are the apex predators. We have hunted for 3,000 cycles. How did prey defeat us?" Sarah did not take her eyes off the battle displays. "Because you forgot the most important rule of nature, Huntmaster. Predators that never encounter real danger grow weak. Prey that must survive every day grows strong. You hunted species weaker than yourselves for so long that you forgot what real danger felt like. We never forgot. Every day, humans struggle against nature, disease each other. We survive because we adapt. You came to Earth thinking you would teach us fear. Instead, you taught us that we could fight back. That was your fatal mistake. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Krell fleet was destroyed or fleeing. Earth's orbit was filled with wreckage from both sides. The coalition had lost nearly 200 ships, but they had won. For the first time in 3,000 cycles, the Krell Empire had been defeated in open combat. Across the galaxy, word of the victory spread like wildfire. More enslaved species rebelled. Krell garrison forces found themselves overwhelmed by populations they had terrorized for generations. The empire began to collapse from within as their infrastructure crumbled, and their military was stretched too thin. 3 months after the battle, Sarah stood in what had once been the United Nations building in New York. Representatives from 37 species gathered there. Liberated people from across the Krell Empire's former territory. They called it the Coalition of Free Worlds, and they looked to Earth for leadership. Sarah addressed them, feeling the weight of what humanity had accomplished and the responsibility it now carried. "We did not seek this conflict. The Krell came to hunt us and we fought back because we had no choice. In doing so, we learned something important. The galaxy is full of species that were beaten down and convinced they could not resist. We proved that was a lie." She gestured to the alien representatives. "Every species here was enslaved or hunted by the Krell. But you were not weak. You were not inferior. You were simply beaten down by predators who had never faced real resistance. Now you have your freedom. What you do with it is up to you." A representative from one of the enslaved worlds, a being that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, stood. "What of the remaining Krell? Should we hunt them to extinction as they did to so many of our worlds?" Sarah considered the question carefully. In the corner of the room, Vorthak stood under guard. He had been forced to witness every moment of his empire's collapse. She walked over to him. "What do you think, Huntmaster? Should we exterminate your species? Give you the same mercy you showed all your prey?" Vorthak's mandibles trembled. "We deserve extinction for what we have done." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "You do, but we are not Krell. We do not hunt for sport or destroy for pleasure. You have a choice now. Join the coalition as equals, help rebuild the worlds you destroyed, and learn to live in peace, or refuse and face justice for your crimes.